Hey guys, it's John C. Morley here, serial entrepreneur. It is December 9th. It's Saturday. I'm great to be with you guys tonight. We have another amazing topic. As you guys know, we always have amazing topics. So we're starting off a brand new master topic today. And if you're new here, just scan that QR code at the top right corner of the screen. If you're not here and you're on Instagram or TikTok or somewhere else, and you can't find the link, well, just go to believemeachieve.com. More of my amazing, inspiring creations. I know you'll definitely will appreciate that. Before we get started, I do appreciate you being here, whether you're here at 10:25 at night, 10:25 in the morning, 12 noon, 12 midnight, 3 a.m., 3 p.m. Makes no difference. I'm glad you're here. So let me tell you who I am. I'm John C. Morley. I'm a serial entrepreneur, and I am a podcast host and a podcast coach and a specialist in helping businesses tell a story that leads to them growing and being more skilled and, of course, more profitable. Now, I typically work with companies that bring in 10 million or more, and I love to help people find their story, whatever that story is, creating that story, but doing it all from truth and integrity. That's what I am all about. All right, guys, let's get started. Definitely check out that link. And when you do, you will see that there is a great page that we add a brand new update on the page for our basically our podcast guests and hosts to check out some of the great tools that I use. Definitely want to take a look at that. So let's get into the master topic, shall we, everyone? Here we go. Here it is. Navigating challenges, top-down versus bottom-up approaches. Series 2, Show 50, episode number 1. All right, what the heck is a top-down? What's a bottom-down? I mean, what is he even like? What is he even talking about? All right, so a top-down approach versus, let's say, a bottom-up approach. Okay. Top-down approaches to solve challenges. Let's say the top-down approach focuses more on the part where it breaks down the certain problem into smaller parts. And a bottom-down approach to solve challenges is solving the more minor problems and then integrating them into the whole and the complete solution. Let me just say that again. So the top-down focuses on the part where it breaks down the certain problem into much smaller problems. So we're kind of like chunking, right? We're kind of like, breaking them down. And the bottom down approach is to solve challenges, solving the more minor problems, and then integrating them into a whole and complete solution. But, when we think about top down, bottom down, I mean, it seems confusing, right? So what is a top down approach? Well, we're going to talk a lot more about this week. But when we think about top down, it's really referring to management. All right. And so we're going to get into that, I promise you. But I want to talk about top down as an inventor, like a top down inventor approach. So it begins with the layout. So the layout is, let's say, a 2D, maybe sketch, and it's the main document of your design. And you create the layout that will represent the assembly, the subassembly, the floor plan, or anything equivalent to that in the layout. And you use a 2D sketch geometry. And the sketch blocks to represent the design concepts, okay? But top-down design begins with the layout. So what is a bottom up approach? Well, that would start with the items you want in there. So if you're building, let's say, a new house, well, you would start with the items that you want to incorporate in the house. For example, I want to build a bowling alley. So I would start with the bowling alley and building the house around the bowling alley, right? As opposed to, here's my house, and now let's put in what I need in the house. But a lot of times when you build a house, maybe you have aspirations like you want to build a bowling alley like I'm doing, or maybe you want to have room for more cars. But you don't necessarily know this, right? Because you're starting the whole house, so like, I just figured it'll fit. But you know what? It doesn't fit. So this is where a top-down approach may not be the most, how can we say, conducive way to actually do something in your life, to get things done. I mean, there's a lot of challenges out there, whether you're talking about software. Let's talk about that for a moment. So what is a top-down software approach? Let's go there, all right? So it's about breaking down a system into subsystems that make it up. So let's say, for example, we were going to build a system to calculate bowling scores. All right. All right. So bowling scores, basically, to have an average of bowling scores, we take the number of games, right? We put first of all, we have to figure out the number of players. So what do we need first? So we need the players, right? We need their scores. And then we need the average. We need to basically average them. But we need something else before we can do all this. We need a file management system, database, if you will, that's going to read in and and also write out. So the first thing we would start if we're doing a top-down approach is we break this into let's say smaller problems. First thing is we need a file management system. We need something that can basically, manage and gather the player's first name, their last name, their age. And so then that's the one piece. Then we have something that needs to be able to read the in out. So we have these different pieces. So the file management system is key. That's how everything's going to be stored. And so the first thing we need something that's going to be able to manage the players. Maybe we'll call it manage players, okay? And so what manage players is going to do is it's just going to manage the players that are on the team. In manage players, I can add a player, I can add a player, or I could delete a player if I wanted to. Then I also need something besides manage players. I need something that's going to say manage games, okay? Manage games. And then in the games, we have our scores. And then we might have something called reporting, like a reporting module, right? But we also need in this whole thing is every time we enter data, we have to make sure that every time we add, edit, or delete, that we store, okay, the information. That's really, really important. So we typically can start out with a very simple structure. We might start out with let's say we start out with a record. And in that record, okay, we're just going to call this record just for argument's sake. For the player, we're going to call this record player bowling underscore player, and I'll abbreviate PLYR, okay, or PLAYR. I don't have to. And so in that record, I'm going to have several fields. First thing I'm going to have in that record is I'm going to have something called a first name field. First name field is going to be a record. It's going to have a character type, and it's going to, let's say, be able to handle up to 50 characters. Last name, same thing. It's going to be a character type, 50 characters. Then I might ask for the age, and the age is going to be a type integer, where it's going to be a number, okay? Then I'm going to need to, so I have the first name. So let's think about this now for a minute. How do they calculate bowling league scores, right? How do they do that? Well, you have to do something else called handicap. So we have to have another system in here basically called handicap. Right now to keep it very simple. So you basically have your players. So we've entered all our players in. And now, once we go in there, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to our, we have our first name, we have our last name, we have the age, okay? And then in there, there's an index. We don't see it, but there's a hidden value, and that value is allowing us to be able to track. So first name, last name, age. We may want to put a city, and we may want to put a county, and we may want to put a state. Okay, pretty easy to do. The next thing we're going to do after we've done that is we're going to go in and put a league. So maybe this league, I'm just going to make it simple. Maybe it's an A league, it's a B league, a C league, but we could just make it whatever it is, right? And so the league is going to be predicating basically where the scores go. So it checks to see where they're going to go. So when we go to the score manager, the first thing it's going to do is say, okay, so now we've got our league. So in the score manager, we're going to have something called basically our score table. And in the score table is a record. And in that record, we're basically going to have the first thing we're going to have in there is we're going to have the entry of the player. So we'll have the player's record number, which will get put in there once we look them up. And then after we get that, it's going to automatically populate in the next field the league that they're on. Why? Because they're different scoring for different leagues. And so now we know what league it's in, and based on the league, we can code the rules to how we score those, just to give you an example. And so now, in addition to that, the next thing we're probably going to ask is we're going to have the thing of basically what their score was of the game. So when we get the score, we're going to have to first. It's going to ask us what game. So it was game 101. And I don't know. Let's just say here. So what are some good bowling scores? If we had to think of some really good ones, so a good bowling score is a 200. A beginner bowler will usually bowl around 50 to 70. An average bowler is 130 to 150. So on game 101, let's just say they scored a 175. Okay. On game 102. So now the question is, how do you know how many games? So in the score manager, it's basically going to go and it has game 101. Game 101, let's just say, might have that whole game 101 will have basically the score of game 101, right? Now, game 102 or the next game, so these are the games. But now let's say we want to take all their games of the season. Well, then all we do is we call the function, which is going to be called bowling averager, and it's automatically going to pull up the score table. I could do it by person. I could do it by everybody, and it would just automatically pull it up, and it would give me all the ones. Now, I could even tell it, give me an average of this game to this game. I might also want to put the date that I played it. Are you getting the idea? So by taking this kind of approach, we are solving this from basically from one way, right? And so by going one way, we are, in one sense, we are solving this, okay, from the top down. So let's go back again. So what is a top-down programming approach? All right, it's really simple, ladies and gentlemen. It just means that the main functionality, it designs by specifying the complex pieces and then divide them into successively smaller pieces. So what we do is we use procedures. We call it a top-down approach. Because if I was to write that whole program about managing the bowling scores, it would get a little complicated. So I could break that whole thing down into the top modules, sub-modules, other modules, right? Even if I wanted to, I could write a piece in there that could be the user manager, right? So now you're probably asking, John, so what is a bottom-up programming approach? All right, not as popular. A bottom-up approach is a little bit different, okay? A bottom-up approach is to take, instead of making it into one, we don't take the big project and break it into small. We start with smaller projects, okay? And we go from there. So the question is, how does that work? What is bottom-up programming approach? So a bottom-up, let's say a bottom-up programming coding, let's just say. It's not hard, but programming with top-down is much better because you can learn, you can create significant pieces in the software. Top-down is really good. And you're able to produce really powerful pieces of software. And you get addicted to the feeling because you do this one thing and you can run it, right? In order for me to run an average, all I need to know is the bowler's name, and I need to know what games that you want to include. I want to include a range, okay? I can even go as far as to pick what alleys. I can do a lot of different things, and then the system can run a report on that. So the bottom approach is not a good idea. The problem with the top down, okay? The top down is good because you create something really quickly. There's a bad of top down is that it does not teach fundamentals. So the bottom up approach, the beauty of the bottom approach is that you learn truly general programming skills, and it doesn't matter if you're making a 3D game or an interactive website. The fundamental concepts of programming apply to everything. So each individual concept is easier to learn because you can study it in isolation if the bottom up course you're taking is structured well, and you won't be bombarded with thousands of other concepts all at once. Now, there's a bad part of the bottom up. First, you learn about the strings and different values and things. So you start learning about the different things, the classes, the instances, etc. Then you try to unlearn the way it originally learned to write the code, and now you have a mess. So which approach is best? Well, neither approach is better than the other. To become a skilled programmer, you need both. You also need fundamental programming skills, and the best approach is to alternate between the two. So I think it depends on what we're working on. I know a lot of times when I was doing coding in class, I love to start with the big problem, and then I love to break it down into smaller little mini projects. And when I did that, it was very rewarding to get the code to do something. Because, if you're writing this software program to do this average, right, and you might not be done with the program for a day or two or a few days or a week, it's nice to see that, oh, gee, I put the information, it stored it, it wrote it. I see some output from the program. And that motivates you to keep coding and going forward. I remember when I wrote a program, it was actually a program to do averages of people's grades. And so it was similar. It had students. So the thing we basically asked was the student put their name in. And then what we did, we made a very simple system. And then we said, we basically said, okay, what class do you have? So you type the class name. Great. What was your first test score? Bing, bing, bing. When you have no more test scores, hit enter. Great. And now it took all those test scores and put them in. So now you did that for all the subjects. So what we did is we ran an average on all of the subjects. So math, let's say physics. We ran an average of each, and then we gave you a total average of everything. Pretty cool, right? But if I just said to you, write a program to average your scores, you'd be like, huh? Like, you know how to do it, right? So the first thing when it comes to programming is you have to realize that you have to know how to do something like manually. If you don't, you're never going to be able to write a program to do that. So top down and bottom up are very interesting. But when we get to management, there's going to be some different things we're going to talk about. But I want to talk about top down and bottom up in a different way. So if you ever try to work on a problem, it could be a logic problem. It could be anything. Or maybe it's just some problem you're having in your life, and you're working at it from the top down because that seems like the most logical way to do it because everyone does that. That's all you know about. Invert the problem and work on it from the bottom up. So when you invert the problem, you could still be at the top, but really you're working at the bottom of the problem. So you might have heard something a while ago when we talk about stacks. We talk about push. We talk about pop, right? We talk about queues. We talk about FIFO queues, first in, first out. We talk about LIFO, last in, first out. And so, for example, understanding this, FIFO, if we have plates, and the first one that gets put in, so we put all these plates in, the very first one that we put in, so we put all these plates over the top, the first one that comes in is the first one out, so it comes out from the bottom. LIFO means the last one that goes in, so we load them from the top, the last one is the first one out. Pretty cool, right? So it's just a matter of understanding how to execute something in a manual sequence. And when you know how to do that, then you can write software for anything. Whether we're talking about moving pixels on the screen, whether we're talking about creating sound. I remember in one of my projects where I was taking a graphic and I had to take this file and I had to take the graphic and I had to make the image bigger I had to literally go through this whole graphic, and I was using an algorithm, but not to bore you with all that. So my point is, we're going to be talking more about top down and bottom up with the approaches, but I thought it was very interesting that we start out with programming, because all programming starts with top down or bottom up. And so there's going to be times when you're going to switch from one to the other. Well, hey guys, you know who I am. I'm John C. Morley, serial entrepreneur. It's been an amazing privilege, of course, a pleasure and honor to be with you this fantastic evening. Please do like, love, support the channel. Comment below, tag your friends, colleagues, and associates. Share this out with everyone you know on social media. Go to my YouTube channel, or just go to believemeachieve.com. Click on that PayPal link and make the choice, ladies and gentlemen, to buy my team and I a cup of coffee, a bowl of fruit, or a scrumptious bowl of desserts. Either way, we'll be grateful. Those pennies and dollars will invest into new hardware, new technology, new equipment, new software, even new facilities, to give you the most jaw-dropping, motivational content to empower you to have an amazing life. I do want to remind you to please go to believemeachieve.com, go to John C. Morley's recent articles, and check out my latest article that just published earlier today, The Mystery of How, Why, and When to Change Your Job, where I cover everything from how you search for a job, as well as what do you do when you found the job that you want to interview for, and how do you actually interview. So you're definitely going to want to check that out. I hope you guys have an amazing evening. But before I do say goodbye, you know who I am by now. I'm John C. Morley. I'm a serial entrepreneur, and I'm a podcast host and a podcast coach and a specialist in helping businesses, yes, tell a story that leads to them growing and being more scalable and profitable. And again, I typically work with companies that bring in 10 million or more, and very passionate about getting the truth about a story, whether they know the truth or have to find the truth. I hope you guys have an amazing night, and I'm going to catch you know when? Yeah, I'll catch you guys later tomorrow. Be well, everyone. Take care.